Welcome! In this video, I'm going to demonstrate how to access and configure Active Directory authentication on a Brother device. Let's look at what Active Directory authentication means. Active Directory authentication on a Brother device enhances security by requiring users to enter their AD credentials to access the device. When enabled, the device's control panel is locked until the user provides their AD user ID and password. This ensures that only authorised personnel can change settings or retrieve printed documents which are securely stored in the device's memory until collected. AD authentication supports single sign-on (SSO), allowing users to use the same credentials across multiple devices. Administrators can manage access centrally through the AD console, streamlining their user management and enhancing security. Now we know what Active Directory authentication is, we are going to set up and configure this on a Brother device. Open your internal web page of your Brother device, also known as the IWP. Enter the password and log in to your IWP. Once logged on, you will be on the status page. Select Administrator from the menu on the left. Under Administrator, select the option Restriction Management. Under Restriction Management is the User Restriction Function options, and this is currently set to off. Select Active Directory Authentication, then scroll to the bottom of the page. Select Submit here. Submit OK in green will now be at the top of your page, confirming changes. Now you will notice an additional menu has appeared under Restriction Management. Select this option called Active Directory Authentication. This is where the Active Directory authentication is configured. Storage PC print data. When on is selected, any print job sent to the device will be stored at the device until the user authenticates with their username and password. What happens next will depend on your next configuration selection. Show Select Job option. This will only be available if you have selected on for the previous selection. If you want the user to authenticate and then their print job to be released straight away, select off here. If you want the user to authenticate and then to select their job from the device, select on here. Storage fax RX data. If the device is fax capable and you want the incoming fax to be received and printed, select off here. If you want the incoming fax to be held until the user authenticates, select on here. Remember the user ID. This depends if you want the device to remember the last user's ID. Select the relevant choice here. In this demonstration, I have selected off. Active Directory server settings. Here, depending on other settings, you will need to enter the IP address or the FQDN of the Active Directory server. Active Directory domain name. Here, you will need to enter the domain name of the Active Directory server, protocol and authentication method. This is where you will choose the relevant method. In this demonstration, I will be using LDAP and not CIFS. CIFS is focused on file sharing, while LDAP is focused on directory services and managing user information. If you are using a FQDN, you will need to select LDAP and Kerberos. If you are using an IP address, you will need to select LDAP and NTLM version 2. Scroll down the page. SSL TLS. Here we choose the secure protocol over the network. Your choice here will depend on your network requirements and policies. LDAP server port. This as a rule will change depending on your last selection. 389 port is for none and 636 port is for SSL TLS, also used if you are using Verify server certificates. LDAP search route. Here is where you enter the search route of your AD. If you know this, you can enter it here. However, if your server supports LDAP version 3, you can automatically search for the required search route string. Select Fetch DNs here. Once the server has returned the result, you will see them listed in the field below. Select from the drop-down to see all the options. Generally, the first option is the one you need to select, but this will depend on the setup of your server. Get mail address. If you want the user to see their email address, select On here. Get user's home directory. If you want the user to access their home folder, select On here. If you want the home folder on for the user, under the Scan option on the menu, then the Scan To option, scroll to the bottom of the page and select On here, then Submit to save these changes. Now back to the AD configuration page. SNTP. Make sure you have this set up correctly by clicking the link here. CA certificates. This is where you will upload the certificate if you have chosen to verify server certificate. Scroll down the page. As this demonstration is for AD authentication with username and password, we don't need to set up the LDAP section here. Now select Submit to confirm all the configuration changes. Once changes are confirmed, you will see a Submit OK in green at the top of the page. Now the configuration is complete, we are going to look at the AD authentication from a brother device. When AD isn't active, this is what the device's LCD will normally show. Here is an example of what your device's LCD will show once you have configured AD authentication. Here is where the domain name will be. This is where the ID of the user will go to log on. They will use SSO details from their AD account set up by their IT administrator. The password for the user account goes here, also SSO. Once all the user information is entered onto the LCD, select OK. The user will now be logged on to the Brother device. This now concludes the demonstration of configuring AD authentication with a username and password. Thank you for watching.